The new legendary Chewbacca does seem to be a viable substitute for Chirrut in the Chex Mix lineup. In fact, I'm going to suggest in this video, he's even better. Let's go! Alright, so like I said, my friends, Chewbacca does seem to be a better fit for the Chex Mix team than Chirrut was. Now, let me make a big disclaimer to start this video off. He is not necessarily earning you better scores. At least, he wasn't doing that for me. Maybe some of you super raid gurus will be able to tell us if he does better or not. For me, it was about consistently the same. What makes Chewbacca so much better, in my opinion, however, is that he's going to eliminate a lot of the important RNG components of the Chex Mix team. If you run Chex Mix and you've seen the guides, I know McMole put out one of the first guides on it that was really helpful. Props again to McMole for that. There's a lot of conditions. Abandon the run if X. Abandon the run if X. Abandon the run if X. This can be super frustrating for a lot of you who can only go to the bathroom for 10 minutes while you're at work, and you need a couple hours to get the perfect RNG for your Chex Mix team. I am confident that Chewbacca will enable you to do this in one, maybe two sittings. There's a lot fewer scenarios that you'll have to retreat, and we'll talk about it. Now, before we do that, let's talk about mods. So, of course, this is going to be the composition. You got Commander Luke, Chewbacca, Pow, Raid Han, and Death Trooper. Now, the characters that are really important are Raid Han. You want to load him up, of course, with as much offense as possible. And you're going to need his speed to be a bit slower. In fact, when I modded this Han, I had to go through here and do a lot just to get the speed down. This test account had way too much speed on it, which is kind of a weird thing. You want to have him between 175 and 178 speed. Obviously, you're not normally going to want to have only 27 speed points for mods added to Han, and so I would recommend saving a loadout so that you can have a loadout just for Han when you run your Chex Mix team. Pow is also going to be importantly slow. You're going to want him to be, I've got mine at 193 speed. Basically, you just need him to be slow enough that he is going to do his offense up after all of the lightsabers have taken their turns, and so that's important. And then Death Trooper as well. I've got him at 179 speed. That's about the ideal range to have him at. Commander Luke Skywalker and Chewbacca's speeds are going to be a little bit more irrelevant. And then across the board, you want to load as much offense up on this team as humanly possible. Now, a big reason why I'm not necessarily scoring the best scores possible with this team is going to be because I actually don't have super good offense stats on them, because I was more just trying to get the speed where it would at least work. So I'm going to show you how this works. But then those of you who are gurus and have this team modded just pristinely perfect with all of those offense stats on point, I anticipate you'll be able to do quite a bit more damage. And so I am showing some runs right now of this composition in action. I do make a few mistakes, but let me talk through what the general attack strategy is going to need to be. So first and foremost, you want to take out one of the lightsabers to start the battle. Now, here's the RNG component number one that is going to be eliminated. Before, if there were 3 foresights on all of those sabers, all of them had a foresight on it, you wanted to retreat and go back in. This time, you really don't need to do that. In fact, I think it's ideal to attack one with foresight. The reason for that is when Han Solo attacks, he's going to actually call Chewie to attack because he's got that guard buff on him. That's going to basically take this saber almost completely out. If you take that saber out initially with the first turn and not attacking a four-sided one, it'll almost always take that saber out. And then you have 2 sabers left, and there's a lot more opportunity for one of those sabers to accidentally be taken out. Ideally, you want to have 2 sabers active and 1 saber out when you apply Death Mark and when you do stand alone. I actually make a mistake in one of these battles, just disclaimer, where I actually did target one of them and I ended up boiling down to 1. You ideally should have 2 sabers active and 1 defeated when you do Death Mark and stand alone. When you take a saber out right away, it does make it a bit more challenging to pull that off without accidentally offing one of them because of the counters and the AoE damage, etc. So once you have the first saber out, go ahead and use Commander Luke Skywalker's call to action and then take out that first saber if it is still there. Otherwise, just focus everybody on Traya and try to leave the other two active. Before, you would want to have Chirrut applying tenacity up right now to Han Solo. This is no longer necessary because the reason you needed tenacity up is to avoid daze, which was going to affect Han Solo's counter chance. You no longer need that because guard eliminates daze from Han Solo completely. It makes him immune to daze, so you're good to go in that respect. Pow then needs to apply offense up to all. Again, that needs to be after the 3 sabers have taken their turn. Traya should take her turn at this point. Then you want to have Death Trooper apply Death Mark and have Solo enter Stand Alone. Now, when you lose Stand Alone, you want to use Han Solo's buff move first, which is Never Tell Me the Odds. That's going to give you all of those extra buffs and additional damage. Only use your basic ability afterwards. I actually make a mistake on that in one of these battles as well and use a special. Don't use a special after Standalone ends as well. Usually she will be staggered. Just try to do what you can. Anything now is icing on the cake, and then you'll die. So once you're out of Standalone, you know, you've pretty much done the damage at this point. You'll know if you had a good run or not. Just try to do as much as you can, and I usually just focus on Traya and don't worry about the lightsaber so I can get as much damage as possible. Now, here's a couple notes. You still do need to abandon the run if a couple things happen, but by and large, a lot of this RNG is completely eliminated when you throw Chewie into the mix. Before, again, like I said already, if the 3 lightsabers all had foresight, you would have to abandon. No longer necessary. In fact, it's kind of ideal. If Commander Luke Skywalker couldn't kill a lightsaber right away, no longer an issue. In fact, the issue now becomes, are you going to kill one too fast and then run into accidentally killing extra? Chirrut is ability blocked. Used to be a retreat condition. No longer an issue. The reason why Chirrut being ability blocked was an issue is then you couldn't cleanse and subsequently give Han Solo tenacity up. Speaking of Han Solo, before, if Han Solo had a debuff, you wanted to retreat before Chirrut was able to apply tenacity up. And the reason for that was in Chirrut's kit, if an enemy has, or if an ally has a buff or a debuff, then it would just give them health up. It would not give them tenacity up. You needed to have him completely clean in order to get that tenacity up. That is no longer an issue. So that is 4 RNG conditions that are now no longer part of the battle. That is huge. It sometimes would take upwards of 5, 6, 7 retreats before you could have all of those conditions met in the battle. Now, if you want to have optimal scores, you will still need to retreat if Han Solo gets isolated. Now, there's a 1 in 5 chance here, so 20% is not too bad. In fact, in all of the battles I did, there was only, I think, 1 scenario where Han Solo actually ended up getting isolated, and I did a lot of testing before I started registering scores here on 3 separate raids for this video. So, not a big deal, but if he does get isolated, he can't counter. The whole thing falls apart, and you're not going to do nearly as much damage. So, get out of there if he gets isolated. Fortunately, in this case, if he does get isolated, it's pretty early in the battle, and it really doesn't take that much time to get it set up again with Chewie. A lot less frustrating before, whereas, you know, it was a lot of stuff you had to get going on. All right, my friends, that is Chex Mix 2.0 in a nutshell. What do you think about this team? Are you excited to run it? One of my favorite parts of this, when we have marquee characters come out, and they're great in raids, like Aura Singh was really good in raids, I still just have a hard time getting excited about that personally, especially recommending it to you guys. Most of you guys are, you know, common average players who aren't going to be able to spend $300 on a marquee tune like our boy Arnold T101 did on Django. And that was an awesome video. So it's hard to recommend characters for raids like almost ever, because who wants to get excited about a character they're going to be able to use in raids next year around this? You know, it just takes so long to get those characters 7 stars. With Chewie, if you have your bounty hunters farmed, and I think a lot of you common players will, some of you won't, and you'll get there. But for those of you that do, like, you're going to be able to use Chewbacca in raids right away. So this is something that I don't feel bad recommending to you guys. Not only that, but even though it's not necessarily going to bolster scores that we haven't seen before, it just takes so much RNG out of the equation, making the raid so much more quality of life, which to me is really important, because the Sith raid, the biggest complaint that I hear from a lot of people is how much RNG is involved and how much time they need to spend getting the perfect run. Chewbacca is the solution to the RNG problem of Phase 3. In my opinion, I think that's super notable and very exciting for a lot of you. I love, like, Chewbacca, his speed is less important. You had to have Chirrut's speed timed so specifically if you were going to get him to work the way you needed to. With Chewbacca, it's active. It's there. Guard is there. That component is handled. And so you don't need to worry about Chewbacca's speed. You do still need to worry about Death Trooper speed and POW speed and Han speed. You want to have them in the right range so that they go at the right time. So it's still there, but it does take at least one of those characters out of the equation. And I feel like you can definitely manage this and get pretty decent scores without much effort. And then if you want to put in tons of effort, get some pretty crazy scores if you get this team modded just right with those offense stats in just a ridiculous level. Once again, let me know what you guys thought down in the comments below. Who is going to be running Chex Mix 2.0? Let me know. And as always, my brothers, don't forget.
My dead body. Sorry about the mess.